There's really no one out there that can't invest. Everyone has a place at the table. And there's, I feel like this is such a cliche line, but there's just not a silly question, right? We can start at the bare minimum, or we can get as technical and as deep as you want to get. Everyone's welcome.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Gather and Growth, a show for the leaders, thinkers, doers, and dreamers from rural communities and beyond. I'm your host, Emily Rushell. On this podcast, we defy expectations, bust through limiting beliefs, and ask the big questions to better understand this beautiful world and the people in it. This is your space to heal, grow, evolve, get curious, and build empathy bridges to truly transform from the inside out. Grab yourself an iced coffee and let's dive in. All right, friends, welcome back to Gather and Grow. Today, I'm joined by my friend Sadie, who is just someone I cannot wait for you to get to know, of the powerhouse that she is in her industry, in this world of farm wifery, agriculture. Oh my gosh, we're going to talk about so many different things. We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about momming. We're going to talk about being just the kind of women who walk between worlds. And I am pumped for this conversation. So Sadie, welcome to Gather and Growth.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
For someone getting to know you for the very first time, please let us in on who are you, where are you, what has your journey been like, and what has brought you here today?
Yeah, so I am Sadie Schw. I am in far South Texas, so west of San Antonio, between San Antonio and the border, in a small farming community. I am married to a sixth-generation farmer. We have 3 beautiful children who I adore and also want to strangle when working from home. And I am a wealth advisor. I have an office in San Antonio, get my fix of the city, and then also a home office out in our community where I service all kinds of families, individuals, entrepreneurs, and just love the world that I'm living in.
I don't know if I know this about you. Are you from the area that you live in?
I
How
am.
did you and your husband meet?
We're actually from the same small town, but we're 7 years apart. He's 7 years older than me. And I knew of him, but didn't really know him. And he's from a farming family. Obviously, my dad has been in the cattle business forever, and he's a crop insurance agent. And so he actually sold insurance to Jacob's family. So my dad knew him really well. And I met him after college, and it just worked. It clicked, it worked, and I thought I would never marry someone from here. Didn't think I would put down roots here, but here we are, the typical story that you hear.
Yeah, well, that was actually going to be my follow-up question. In pursuit of the career that you're in, like, did you always assume like, oh, I'm going to do this and come back and serve my hometown? Or was it like big city dreams and now, oh my God, I'm home?
No, so, this is something that a lot of folks don't know about me. While I was in college, I actually worked at a boutique, and then I ended up buying the boutique my junior year of college. So my junior and senior year, I ran the store, loved it. It served its space and its time in my story. While I had the store, I was doing fairly well with it, and I was investing. And my advisor, who I was investing with, was like, hey, you really understand this. You really get it. And oh, ta-da, you're getting a finance degree. Why don't you put it to work and come and work for me? And so that was really how I got into the wealth management space and the investing world, was just getting my own hands dirty and putting my own money to work. So I ended up selling this store. It's still here in our hometown. I sold it. I went to work for this gentleman, was there a few years. It was a great first step, foundational type experience job. And really the doors just opened from there. I went on to work for a really high net worth wealth management firm in San Antonio, where I gained just a plethora of knowledge, working with high net worth individuals, hedge fund companies, and directly with folks that are on the exchange floor. And I can't thank that step in my career enough, because it really was my launch forward to where I am now.
I think it is so inspiring to see the trajectory that you found yourself on, specifically in the world of finance. I will be the first one to say that, like, numbers are not my passion. They are not my spiritual gifting. And I have always been intimidated by them. And I know that is not everyone. Like, I get on mastermind calls where people are like, I love bookkeeping. And I'm like, I'm so happy for you, but it is so unnatural to me. And I wonder how much of that is just like natural inclination of like, I am
oh yeah, you're with the majority.
Yeah. But I also know that there were so many times in my life where I was told I was not good at math.
Mm.
And so I like always have to go back to, is this like, okay, maybe natural inclination, and how much is this role conditioning of like, girls aren't good at math or whatever. And that's making mass
Yeah.
sweeping generalizations. But I know that there are so many women like me who get put in these situations and have the like theoretical goal of like, okay, I want to be wealthy. I want to make more money. And especially now that I'm in business and I'm learning and I'm open and I'm being graceful with myself. But like, especially early in my marriage and early into farming, like going into conversations with our financial advisor and being like, yeah, I have no questions. Everything sounds great. Like, and truly from a place of like not knowing or not caring or not feeling comfortable or not even like speaking the language. Is that something
Mhm.
you see with a lot of your clients? And like, how do you empower the women or the wives to really take ownership of their financial investments and future?
I love so many parts of that conversation. First of all, if there's any mamas out there listening and you're raising a creative daughter who has a maybe not so much of a math brain, find ways to connect with them in their space. My daughter is very creative brain. If I have to find ways to just connect with her. So if she's painting, okay, let's add up the paints. Let's multiply. I just find some goofy, silly ways to connect with her because I really think everyone can be good at everything to a certain capacity that will serve them well. And even if you walk into the entrepreneur world that we're living in, and to get to your bottom line question, a lot of creative minds, they don't like the analytical work. I mean, that's in the weeds. It's boring. I personally despise bookkeeping.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love it. I love investing. It's a totally different side of numbers. It's a totally different side of math. It's also very forward thinking, and you get very creative in the investing space. So I get to use that creative side of my brain. And I think something to just empower women out there is to know that you're not alone. Multiple women every year walk into
Mm-hmm.
my office and say, I know nothing. I need your help. And honestly, that's one of my favorite clients
Mm-hmm.
because I have a you go girl spirit and I have a you can do it girl spirit. And I think nothing lights me on fire more than helping my clients, educating them, making their goals attainable and reachable. And basically, what I like to do is I like to back into the numbers. So I'll say, okay, where are you at? What are you making? What are we dreaming about, thinking about? And then it's really my role and my job to walk them through the process of getting there. And it's my job to make their money work for them. And it's their job to go back out into the world
Mm.
and to make more and do what they're best at and turn their spirits on and their creative lights on and get to work to achieve and attain those goals. I can't tell you how many women I give pep talks to before they go see their advisor with their husband, and how many of them end up walking in my door and I
Yeah.
become their advisor because I love working with women and I love working with families and entrepreneurs in general. There's really no one out there that can't invest. Everyone has a place at the table, and I feel like this is such a cliche line, but there's just not a silly question, right? We can start at the bare minimum, or we can get as technical and as deep as you want to get. Everyone's welcome.
Yeah. So for someone listening that's like, okay, I keep hearing about this investing thing, but like, how do I even do that? Where do I get started? Like, take it back to square one. Like, how does someone initiate that conversation? Who do they look for? Like, because I know with anything, whether we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about therapy or calling a new doctor, like getting set up at the OB, it's like finding the right person and making the phone call is the hardest
Yes.
part. So like, who are we looking for? And like, what are we even asking for?
Right. So, shameless plug, my door is open, but I also know that there's,
Well, obviously.
I'm down in South Texas. One thing that I really am stressing these days to folks whenever I hit with conversations is can you find an advisor on Instagram, on TikTok? Yes, there are folks like myself there who have put in the time, the effort, have the degrees, have the licensing, are working with legitimate companies, broker dealers, all of the good things that you need to run an efficient investing company. However, there's a ton of information right now floating around that really isn't founded on sound advice. And there's a site called Broker Check. And I encourage everybody, whether you're working with me, whether you're working with the guy down the street, the person in your hometown, please, please, please get on Broker Check. Put their information, their first and last name. There's something called a CRD number, which is our registered licensing number through the SEC, FINRA, and the government. That's kind of our federal regulation system. Please look them up because there's so much floating around these days. I constantly, every time I get on TikTok, it's like, how to save $13,000 on your income tax. There are ways to get creative and to do these kind of things, but there's a lot of folks out there who are not accredited, who are just giving out advice that they really shouldn't be. So I encourage everyone to use Broker Check. Use it, use it, use it. It's why it's there. Secondly, I think something that you should always do is look for referral sources, look at their website, make sure that they can back what they're saying and what they're putting out into the world. And then you can always take a consultation call. I have folks who I am pretty competitive, so we do have so far 100% track record. But I always say you could have consultation calls with anyone, right? You should date. You should test them out. You should talk to them. You should have lunch. You should have a long phone calls, several phone calls sometimes. It's kind of like dating. We need to make sure we're a good match. There's been a time or two that I have said, I don't think we're a great match. This is kind of the direction I'm going. This is what I see in you. Maybe you should talk to so-and-so. And I can normally give out a really great referral. But I encourage everyone to treat it like a dating experience and make sure that you are a right match for each other.
That's such good advice for so many things. I've helped a lot of women like get started with therapy, and it's the same thing. It's this isn't like the pediatrician your mom chose for you. Like you get to find someone who is the right fit, right? And
Right.
if something doesn't feel right, if you don't understand, if someone's belittling you or making you feel stupid, then like there is someone out there who is ready to empower you and help you. So by all means, like you are hiring them. You choose someone who meets your needs and makes you feel like confident in what you're doing.
Amen to that. I mean, that just translates to everything.
Okay. So a lot of women, not everyone, but a lot of people who listen to this podcast are in the realm of entrepreneurship. If they are not investing, what are some things that they should be thinking about to get started? Then the next layer is, okay, if you're already doing some things, how can we kick it up a notch to like grow fat bank accounts, right?
Love that terminology. Something that entrepreneurs really should be doing, and I have to be really careful because I do carry several licenses, and so I cannot give out direct broad advice on a platform like this, but I can give you some really good directions to go. And that is, if you are an entrepreneur, you should definitely have an IRA set up. This is a way to put away funds that grow tax deferred. So capital gains, taxes, everything is paid on the backside. It's just a really great way to grow wealth and to also have a tax deduction on your income taxes. So I really encourage this. It's a way for you to have money working for you that you can put aside, start your own retirement account. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs, some of them are starting right out of college these days, just with like the COVID cycle coming through. So they don't have a 401k in the background or a TRS account or, you know, any kind of previous retirement account. So I highly encourage everyone, even if it's $50 a month, $100 a month, you know, $25 a month, whatever. Of course, you know, there's $6,500 and $7,500 caps on it per year. Yes, fund it fully if you can. But even if you can't, start small because money compounds and it grows. And as it compounds and as it grows and as you gain interest, you start gaining traction. And there's nothing better than looking back and looking at the time value of money and seeing those dollars add up. Those are the accounts that I love, right? I love taking a young person and saying, okay, I can find in your budget where you can fit $100 a month into this IRA. And we can do it over X amount of time. And you're going to have income bumps as your business grows and as you grow as a person. And we're going to increase that monthly contribution or that yearly contribution. But let's start now and get really gritty about it. I love a good challenge. So those are my favorite clients to help find a way to invest. And then there's, you know, your folks who are established, who have taken those steps and are doing great things. And we start getting really crafty and creative and looking at, okay, can we open up a spousal IRA for your business and start funding your spouse to put some more funds away at a tax deduction? Can we start funding the kids? Can we look at maybe, you know, a different route to go to just help you project forward and gain more momentum in the investing space?
You make it sound so fun.
Hey, it's a good time here, always.
I love it. Now, I know one thing we have talked about in the past is just how unique of a position it is to be in the type of work that you're doing and the things that you know about and that you're so passionate about. And that when you are on calls with your peers, they're like living a totally different lifestyle. And then, you know, just existing in the small town space that you're in, sometimes it feels like no one's thinking about the same things that you are thinking about. Can you speak into like what that experience has been like?
Yeah, so it has been, I might get emotional. It's been the biggest challenge of my career and my marriage and my life so far, but yet it has produced some of the most beautiful things in my life. And I am so grateful for both sides of it. tearing up. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize for being a person with feelings. We're here for it.
Yes, and if you're out there struggling with this, just know I'm extending like the biggest hug to you. And I will tell you that there is beauty in this process, and there is beauty in being in a rural community, possibly married to a farmer or a rancher, or just being tied down, right? And as farmers and ranchers, we just can't pick up the family farm and move. But there's beauty in that. And I'm
Hmm.
really having to focus on the good, right? I love raising my kids in a small town. I love the rural environment that I'm in where I know most of the folks in my town. But man, I also love a good day at my office in the heart of San Antonio, looking out the beautiful glass into the city and picking up my curbside order at our grocery store and, having great happy hours. And I love both lives, and I could
Hmm.
easily live one or the other. And I think meshing them together has been an experience. It has provided some speed bumps along the way, but man, it's made me grow. Something that, like this morning, I was on a walk, and here I am on my market analysis walk. I do a market call every single morning with several folks from around the United States who are plugged into the market in different ways than I am. And so we kind of brainstorm together. And one of the guys on this call, he actually works on the exchange, and he's a true analyst. And so he's walking the street to like go get, a chocolate stuffed croissant and a coffee. And I'm out on our county road walking, and here I am, and I forgot that we had some fresh calves. So we're in the middle of this market call, and these calves start bawling, and everyone kind of stops. And to me, that's very normal. And he kind of chuckled, and he was like, Sadie, it sounds like T-Rex is following you. Are you okay? And here we have fresh calves, and I'm talking to a guy who's literally walking up and down the streets of New York, and we're hashing out what does the market do in the face of the elections and kind of what's going on in the world and which way are we going. There's
Yeah.
a couple paths that we could go right now in the market. And so here we are having this really detailed conversation, very analytical, and I'm walking through pins of cabs. But that is my life, and it is beautiful though. I love going to New York City. I love going and meeting with all my fund advisors and my fund managers. I love going to Chicago and visiting the commodity guys and the exchange there. And I'm deeply rooted in the investing world. And I think something that's really hard is cheering for myself. It's really hard to live kind of
Mm.
these two roles, and sometimes I get caught up in like nobody here really knows, not that I'm a big deal, but knows this other side of me, right? And no one here maybe knows
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like last year I won an award for my portfolio being one of the top portfolios in the States, and here I am in New York, I get this award, it's a big deal, and I fly back, and I get to I get back to our house, and I wake up to like cattle that accidentally got in our front yard the next morning. So it's just such a different lifestyle, I think. And,
Hmm.
but it really is a challenge, but it's, I would say, one of my biggest accomplishments, and something that I'm really proud of is that I can wear multiple hats, and I
Hmm.
can take my humble roots and my foundation and honestly my firsthand experience in the commodity space and also share that with the other side. I can share that with
Yeah.
the hedge fund managers, with the fund managers, with my commodity fund managers. I really think that there's not many folks out there in my space are living this double life, really. And
Yeah.
I have just learned to tap into it. I've learned to own it. I've learned to tap into it. It's nothing to be ashamed of on either side. And there are
Hmm.
some lonely days. There are some hard days.
Well, that's the first thing that came to mind is like how lonely it can feel sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Because as people, we like to put ourselves and each other into boxes. It's like, this
Mm-hmm.
is me and you are like me. And that
Right.
is good and safe and well. I can just speak to my own experience of like trying to figure out who I was in the world of being a farm wife or like living in the middle of nowhere and seeing pieces of myself represented in these other people online and like inserting myself into those conversations and being
Mm-hmm.
like, but it's not fully me, and you say and you do and you believe things that I don't fully align with, and I fully like respect and love you for that, but like there's this piece of me that doesn't fit there, and that can feel so isolating. Then I see and I follow and I'm a part of these other spaces online, and I'm like, oh yeah, I get you, you get me, like I see myself in that, but like you also don't have any conceptual understanding of what my life is like here. And so
Yeah.
again, so freaking cool, so beautiful, so wonderful. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm so proud to be a person who can identify and see myself in so many different spaces, but it can feel also really lonely of like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
but no one really truly sees all of me.
I can't tell you how many times that it crosses my mind. And I have kind of a win folder in my Google Drive for myself. It's just a self win
Hmm.
board. And the days that feel really darn good, I make sure I get in that win folder and I just write. Today
Mm-hmm.
felt so good and I felt so heard and I felt so apart, or whatever I'm feeling, I felt so encouraged or I felt so inspired. And what I have noticed is there's wins from both sides of my life. There
Yeah.
are farm wins of I was able to help my husband secure X, Y, and Z because I had the knowledge of
Mm-hmm.
what I do for a living in my career. There's a couple lines in there where it's like I was able to stand up in front of 300 advisors and give my firsthand farm experience of what farmers
Yeah.
are feeling and what ranchers are feeling and what they're going through and the mental crisis that's happening in our industry. And I was able to share that with folks who are so disconnected
Mm-hmm.
from the dirt that we farm
Mm-hmm.
that it was just, it gives me chills. It's a really neat experience to be that middleman and be the
Yeah.
connector. And I've had
Mm-hmm.
folks reach out to me and just say, they find it fascinating. I have other advisors, and a hedge fund manager in particularly is really, I think he's almost in shock of what farmers go through to get to that
Mm-hmm.
end result, right? Here he is managing a hedge fund that's worth several $billions in the commodity space. And he had no idea of the process of the commodities to even get to the point that private equity can invest in those commodities,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like the appreciation was not there. Him and I have been able to have some really deep conversations, and just being that connector, I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm damn proud to be that person. It's taken a lot of work. It's taken a lot of courage. There's been a lot of days where I struggled with who I was. Who was
Mm-hmm.
I supposed to? Was I supposed to just be this farm wife? Was I supposed to put myself out there and live this career out and be this person? And, I can't thank my husband enough, because the days that were hard, he would just tell me, farmers need you and ranchers need you.
Mm-hmm.
And your clients need you. Here I am, crying. Everyone, I do have a 4-month-old, so know that my hormones are not right.
Well, and
But
this is a deeply
these are my
personal
people.
topic.
It
Yeah.
it's so personal to me. I mean, I see my husband work his rear off and spend so much time away from our family. And I mean, the drill. You're
Mm-hmm.
living it out. So many women are
Mm-hmm.
living that out. To be the connector of those two worlds, I used to think it was almost a hindrance. And I didn't,
Mm-hmm.
I struggled with it so bad. And now I'm like, thank you, God, for choosing me, because I
Yeah.
care. I really do care deeply about both sides of it. And, farmers and ranchers are a big part of my business. They're not my sole client, but they're a big part of my business. And they're some of my favorite, financial planning cases to work on. Some
Mm-hmm.
of my favorite estate plans to work on. When I get a big win for them, like, it's a big deal in our office. And I just love those folks so much. And I will say to the women out there who are in the ag space and are advocating in the ag space, like, keep doing it. Your voice is heard. And I really think this is our time, right? Like, we're
We are
seeing that.
changing the conversation. Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, and I think now more than ever in agriculture, in farms, in family farms, we have to be better at business than has ever been required
Mm-hmm.
ever before. The
100%.
world is changing. The markets are changing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it no longer works to just show up and do what's always been done. Like, that is not
No.
sustainable. Like, so many of the women I know and in community with care so much about preserving their legacy for the next generation. And a part of that is like knowing your money and owning your shit and making hard decisions and like being savvy in the world that we live in. And that is where people like you come into play who speak both languages. Because it is so, like, my husband and I, one of our financial advisors that we work with is in St. Louis and is part of like a whole family deal, whatever. We don't need to go into that. But like the number of conversations that we have had to have with him to educate why we make the decisions that we do, that he doesn't understand because his clientele is not on the farm and he is great at his job. But like,
Yes.
farm math is a different kind of math, and the way that we invest in the things that are important to us and like what our priorities are in our growth plans and our succession is just outside of his comfort zone. And had we blindly gone with what he knows as best practice, like things would not have panned out for us in the way that they have. And so it is so important to have people like you in your industry who can really talk about like why we are making the decisions that we do, why things are important to it, what we are up against, like how we are manipulating our finances in a different way than someone who's working off a corporate salary is going to. And then on the same way, on the flip side, like you have this beautiful knowledge space and application to be able to work with these families in agriculture and be able to say, here's how we can get smarter. Here's how we can streamline. Have you thought about this? Like, how can we take what's already working and like try something different to like grow in
Mm-hmm.
the way that you want to. Like it is so cool. And I admire you so much for it.
It's so vital. I can't tell you how important it is right now with margins where they are, with inputs where
Mm-hmm.
they are. Yes, I want to work with the world. I want to save the world. I want to help every family farm out there. Is that actually doable? Probably not, right? Am I building
Right.
out this business model to where it is doable? Yes, I am. Are we there yet? No. But what I can't preach enough is work with someone. Like you have to.
Mm-hmm.
You have to diversify off the farm. You have to think bigger picture, longer term. It's just our weather patterns are changing, our inputs are changing, our margins have drastically changed. There's just so much happening in our space. And here
Mm-hmm.
we also, in the same time, right, during this perfect storm of everything I just mentioned, here comes technology, right? Here
Oh my
comes
gosh. Yeah.
corporate America who wants to now have an input on the family farm. And we're seeing them
Mm-hmm.
purchase farms, right? We're seeing more and more corporate companies come out and buy farmland. Then we also have like an increase in population. So now farmland, you can't compete with it. You no longer can go and compete and buy up farmland in most of these rural
Mm-hmm.
communities because you're competing against investors and builders and developers, and it's a completely different ball game, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the growth of the family farm is not what it used to be in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and
Mm-hmm.
even the early 2000s. And like where I live, we have San Antonio knocking on our doorstep. My husband and
Mm-hmm.
I will face a decision in our lifetime. I don't know when, but in our
Mm-hmm.
lifetime, we will face a decision. Do we sell the family farm by the square foot and
Yeah.
set our family, our kids up for generational wealth? Or do
Yeah.
we hold on to that legacy and preserve it and fight like cats and
Mm-hmm.
dogs to where if our one of our children want to come back and farm, they can make an honest living doing that. So on
Yeah.
the days that I don't want to, on my bad days where I'm just like, I don't want to work today, I don't have it in me, I'm having a rough day, those are the things I remember. I always tell myself, like, get your butt up, get going, turn your attitude around because you're working for a bigger picture than yourself. And that bigger picture for
Mm-hmm.
me is to not have to make that decision when it comes knocking, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there's so many folks out there that are getting into ag too. I talked to several young, full
Mm-hmm.
of, oh man, I love it, right? Their energy's wild.
So
They're just,
optimistic. Oh
I'm
my
like,
God, yes.
oh yes. I'm like, can you rub it off on me? Can you please come
Yes.
rub my shoulder? But I talk to these young farmers and I love it. They're go-getters. They're full of energy and passion. But you know something they're doing right? They're talking to me. They're talking to an
Mm-hmm.
advisor in their first
Mm-hmm.
years of operating the family farm or even working on the family farm. And I'm thinking of a Kansas couple right now that I'm just, oh, I want so much goodness for them because they are just working their butts off and they're having that conversation. And I think that's going to be the key component, right? That's going to
Mm-hmm.
be what keeps them in the market and to where they can compete on buying land and growing the farm and preserving and to be able to make that hard decision and stand firmly and say, no, I don't have to sell this by the square foot because I have done the
Mm-hmm.
hard work. I have done the due diligence and I have put in the time and effort diversifying off this farm and I can preserve this legacy. And I think that is what motivates me on the hard days is just knowing that I'm making that difference and that there's folks in my
Mm-hmm.
industry making that difference. And I tell other advisors that do work in farm communities, like, you have got to view it this way. You have got to see it this way. And you have to change the mindset. Our generations I have conversations where I work with multiple generations in one room and I am the bad guy. I am the facilitator. That older generation doesn't always like me, but they leave loving me. And I make damn sure that that happens because it is so important that we put on a different set of glasses and we view the world through different lenses
Mm-hmm.
and we make sure that we're taking the right steps and we're preserving so that we can give the next generation a fighting chance. That's what keeps me going on the hard days is knowing that I can be that person and make the difference.
Well, yeah, one thing you bring up there is just like what it looks like to be able to sit in conversation and hold space for different perspectives.
Mm-hmm. And honor them, right? We have to honor where we've come from and respect where we've come from and the building blocks and the foundation that some of those older generations and perspectives bring to the table. And then also honor and respect the next generation and the ideas and the fruition and the entrepreneurial spirit and the drive and how they use technology to their benefit for connections. I
Well, in
mean,
the world that they're existing in and growing into, like
yes, you
it
have to
is a
morph.
very real thing. Like so much has changed in the past 5 years, so much has changed in the past 10 years. And then we just look at the state of everything. in
Hmm.
politics, in the world as a whole, in the way that that's affecting every market ever, and the very real role that agriculture plays in that. And like, we cannot keep pretending we can't be aware or at least take into
Hmm.
consideration what the future looks like while also honoring the legacy of the past.
Yes, and that's something that I hone in on our financial planning process, on our multi-generation process with farmers and ranchers when we talk about legacy planning and we talk about investing with legacy planning. That is the root of the conversation, is honoring the past, looking forward, and being respectful to both parties, but yet finding a way for them to work together and work to their goals and the better good. And I take my hat off to a lot of these older generation farmers and ranchers and even entrepreneurs as well. Even I'm seeing it across all family businesses. Everyone's having to morph. Everybody's having to keep up with the times. And it's not just in the farm and ranch space. I'm seeing it across all kinds of industries. One thing I will say is I really am impressed with the older generation coming around and having open hearts and open ears, because at the end of the day, love and passion is what keeps family businesses going.
Yeah.
And I think when you have a strong family and a strong bond and the love and the passion is there, I really do see
Mm-hmm.
those older generations open up when we walk through our process of legacy planning. They hear us, and do they know how to do it? Maybe not, right? Do they want to learn? Probably not. Most of them are on their way out the door, but they can appreciate it and they can respect it and they know there's a space for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just something that it really melts me when I see it. And that's kind of the aha moment in the room whenever we are legacy planning.
Yeah. Well, it is why it's so important to bring people like you into the conversation. It's just like a neutral third party who can have that outside perspective, who can hear all the points of view, honor where everyone's at, what they
Mm-hmm.
bring to the table. You know, everyone has different ways of approaching the goal, but so much of it is like just this want to like keep the family unit intact and make sure that everyone is well taken care of and that the legacy is intact and
Mm-hmm.
whatever that looks like. And
Right.
so bringing someone into the conversation, whether it is a wealth advisor, whether it is a lawyer, whether it is, you know, a succession planner, like that is so important. And for so long, I feel like there was changing hands between generation of just like, oh, well, here's what I think it's worth and you should pay me out or like whatever. And that's not necessarily sustainable anymore. So I appreciate you bringing into that conversation.
I'm the quarterback for my families
Yes.
and tell them, make me the quarterback. I can handle the hits. I can also throw the ball. I
Yes.
can make things happen. So
Yeah.
I love being the quarterback. And I think that every business, every family farm, every ranch, every family
Mm-hmm.
needs a financial quarterback in their life. That's really my role at the end of the day.
Yeah. I know one thing that got brought up a lot in the mastermind that you were in last year that kind of goes back to one thing we were just talking about is like what it looks like to take ownership of who you are in a small town, especially
Mm-hmm.
when you are doing things that maybe is outside of the norm or like you're having different conversations. Like, what has that process
Yeah.
looked like in kind of that walking between worlds of having half of your life in a really tall building with a city view? Like, how have you navigated that role in your community?
You know, I won't say that I'm doing the best job. It's a work in progress. I have just met my community at their doorsteps, right?
Mhm.
Something that I'm pretty good at is gauging a room, gauging the emotional level of the room. I'm really good at reading a crowd. So I'm involved. I'm on the PTO. I'm on the private school board. I'm actively at church. I'm with my kids. I'm involved in, I think I've learned how to express, you know, what I do, who I am, what my career looks like to moms that I'm momming with and
Mhm.
that I'm in the thick of it with. They're really good for me because I am all business. Like, I don't want to talk about what Bridgerton and Friends and Seinfeld, like, I don't, whatever. That's, you know, time is money to me and money is key and money makes the world go round in my eyes. And so, long story short, like, I need those people, is what
Mhm.
I have found. Like, I need someone to make me sit and talk about what kind of formula is working for my 4 month old.
Mhm.
I need a mom who says, let's meet at the park, and who makes me kind of slow down and just appreciate what's in front of me and take in the beauty of everyday life and my kids. And so, you know, as much as I've struggled with it, I almost like fought it for a while.
Yeah.
It's really playing a big part back into my life and motherhood. And I'm learning from those women. I think that there's a lot to learn from other moms, from stay-at-home moms to other working moms. I mean, we're all in this together. And I feel like at the end of the day, there's things that I bring to the table, and I bring kind of the spirit of like, you can stand on your own two
Mm,
feet and you can be strong and independent and you can set goals and you can achieve them and like don't let anything get in the way. And I'm the motivator who can definitely like give you a high five and also have the hard talk of like, this is, I'll say it like it is. And I can kind of bring that business side to the table. But then I also need the other side, the soft side, the kind of round out my hard edges. And I've just learned to how to tap into it. And it's a work in progress. Like I said, there's days that are hard. There's
mhm.
been some times that I know I've gotten up and probably been the talk of the table. And I take that with a grain of salt, and I kind of think of it as advertisement, like any advertisement's free
It's
advertisement.
true.
So whatever,
Ain't
am
no
I going to do that?
tabloid like the small town gas station coffee corner.
Yeah, hand out my business card while you're at it. But yes,
I love it.
but it's been good for me. It's been
Hmm.
really good for me. My life could have gone several different ways, and I'm real thankful that it went the way that it did. And I think that there are some hard times, and there are some
Hmm.
times when I know it's time for me to get out of town, and it's time for a vacay or trip or a quick trip up to the city or whatever that it looks like.
Yeah.
Just as much as I want that and I crave that, man, by Thursday and Friday, I'm ready to get back out to the
Hmm.
farm in the country and just chill. And so
Yeah.
it's been good.
There's a few things that I hear from that is first of all, like it is okay and important to cultivate different types of relationships. It is beautiful to see yourself represented in the people around you in one area and then have like another group of friends that kind of fill your cup in a different area and then have professional colleagues that fill your
Yes.
cup in different areas. And that's wonderful. I think in
Mm-hmm.
so many ways we've lost the art of being okay with being friends and in community with people who think and feel and act and do things differently than we do. It's part of the human
Mm-hmm.
experience and it's great. Not everyone in your circle needs to be a carbon copy of you.
I kind of prefer it,
Yeah.
I enjoy it. And my husband always makes fun of me because he's like, oh my gosh, we can't go anywhere without you like picking up a client or like,
Yeah.
you start talking, you talk to everybody. And I'm like, I do, but it's so interesting. Like
Hmm.
there's so many walks. Everyone's living their own life. Everyone is carrying their own knowledge. They're living out their own dreams and goals in whatever capacity that is. None of it's right or wrong, right? It's just their own walk. And it's so interesting to me that we all coexist, on this huge planet and we make it go round and we do things for the good and for the better of our communities. And yet we're so different. I was
Hmm.
just on an academic committee not that long ago. And it was funny because at first, the first day, I went home, I hustled home, picked up the kids, got them to the sitter, went home, took off my business clothes. I was in like a really cute outfit that day. I loved it. The super cute business outfit. And I went and put on like mom clothes to go to this meeting
Hmm.
because I didn't want to walk in with like the wrong Sadie.
Mm.
And I really didn't have time to do that. And I got there and I realized on the way home, I thought, man, that was silly. Like, why did I do that? Everyone else showed up as themselves. Why was I not comfortable showing up as
Mm.
myself? And it was
Hmm.
this aha moment to me that even though I've come so far, I have so far to go in self work. Some days are harder than others to show up as you and to just be you. And for some reason, I put career Sadie, businesswoman Sadie in a box that day. That was really silly. It was just an outfit, right? I had met with one of my biggest clients. It happens to be a really large corporation. And so, long story short, I did this and then I took a step back. Why? Why do we do this sometimes?
Hmm.
And there's all walks of life that were on this committee, and everyone else casually showed up as themselves, or at least on the exterior, right? They showed up as themselves. It was a really good reminder of just own who you are, be who you are, and be okay with maybe you bring something different to the table and someone else fills a different hole. Maybe you're not the smartest one at the table. Maybe you're not the quietest one at the table or the loudest one, but it's okay. We all bring these different qualities and talents and skills, to the world, to life, to everything as small as a committee in your hometown to as big of running a business and making really hard decisions. And so I feel like I constantly get those little reminders, and that it was a hard day. I remember it being a long day and I had gone through a lot and I had worked through a lot and worked my butt off that day. And I guess I just needed to put it away and be done with it. It was a really good reminder for me that it's just okay to be me. even though I live these two different lives, and the distance between my office and my house is about 40 miles, and it's a really good down. A lot of people say, how do you do that all the time? And I love it. I get out of the house, get into business mode, and then I drive home and I kind of take a step back and get into like mom mode, wife mode, small town living. It's a really good buffer for me. It's kind of my
Hmm.
downtime or my like get ready for the daytime. You know, I think if you're struggling with it, no, you're not alone. If you've been walking this road for a while, you're probably much like me, and yes, you've come so far, but there's still so far to go. And if you don't understand it at all, just know there's women out there who are struggling with this.
Yeah. And I think it's like a continual process of allowing yourself to live fully in all aspects of your life. There is something to be said of like, okay, how do I want to show up in this environment? My therapist and I worked on a lot of this with me is like, I felt like, what are they expecting of me? Like, how do I need to show up? I'm an Enneagram 3. So it's like, we read, like you said, read the room and like, what do I need to be successful? And what, I've been working on, I'm like, who am I, regardless of any of these factors or any of these other pieces of my life? And then how do I take those core pieces of who I am and show up the way I want to show up with the energy that I want to bring to different situations?
Mm-hmm.
And also continuously reminding myself, like, I don't need to fundamentally change who I am in order to find safety in different situations. Like, it is safe to be me no matter what space that I'm in. But it is like, I understand the struggle that you're talking about. It's weird to know how to wear these different hats of like,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I feel like I don't know how to have a normal conversation anymore because every single one that I have is like, at
Yes.
work, it's like podcasts or like deep coaching and like masterminding and like taking apart our life and like talking about all these things. And then I go to like baseball practice and I'm like, how do I just talk about like
Yeah.
what's right in front of me? Right.
Yeah. It's
But then I'm also like, but why do I feel like I have to be anything other than that? Like, why can't I be the person that brings these types of conversations to the table?
yes, 100%. But we're in it together.
We are in it together. And I just think it's so beautiful. And the thing that I love the most about this space is that we are finding each other. And it is always a breath of relief to know like someone else gets their own version of like what I'm going through. Like, so beautiful. So thank you for sharing your heart and your story and your journey and your passions with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you. So something I ask every guest before we close out the show is, what does personal growth look like for you in this season?
Personal growth in this season of life really looks like stretching my boundaries and giving up some control. I have been in the details and in the weeds of my business and what I do a little bit too long. And it's time to bring some other people to the table, to give over some control, to allow myself to really project forward and to give myself some capacity to work on my dreams and my goals. I've got to step away from some of the daily things that I do and let someone else step in. And I really think that a good leader and a great leader is great at delegating and great at trusting and puts the right people in the right seat. I've merged with another wonderful advisor. She is fantastic and she's teaching me how to do this and helping me along the way. And, whenever the merge happens, she has a great staff in place. And so we're learning how to tap into the right resources, how to utilize the right players and team players, and really building out a strong team so that I can project forward. And for me, that means giving up control. As a Enneagram 3 and just a high achiever and a female, that's a little hard. And so I'm having to just stretch my boundaries of knowing that it's okay. And if it doesn't happen exactly as I picture it or exactly as I plan, it is okay. From the sitter at home who's running our household for us to my husband's bookkeeper, to all these hats that I once wore that I'm kind of slowly giving away so that I can focus
Mm-hmm.
on my clients and projecting the business forward and what the next steps look like. And it's hard. I know that there's females out there
Yeah.
who can relate to that. Giving up that control is so hard. But I think the projection that comes with giving yourself capacity and mental clarity and space is
Mm-hmm.
needed if you're going to one up and get to the next level. And it's time to move on. It's time to get to the next level.
Yeah, I love that you bring up just like we theoretically can do it all, but it's not good for us to try to
Correct.
do it all. That's where we feel so burnout and crazy. And so taking a hard look of like, where can I release the control? Where can I release the
Mm-hmm.
expectation that I have to do it all? Who can I bring on board? Who is going to be part of this village? And
Mm-hmm.
maybe it is someone to do your social media, or maybe it is childcare, or maybe it is who cleans your house, or maybe it is a wealth advisor, or whatever that looks
Yes.
like. We have to continuously reevaluate of like, what do I want on my plate and what are my non-negotiables to feel and do
Mm-hmm.
my best work and show up as my best self for the people I care about the most. And then what can I let go of, or who can I bring alongside me to help me on this journey? It's so important. Mic drop.
Yeah, without shame and without guilt. Don't hold guilt and don't shame yourself.
Absolutely.
Just because you can doesn't mean that you should.
Absolutely. And just because you need help with something right now also doesn't mean that you'll need help with it forever. Like, meet yourself in the season that you're at.
Amen to that.
All right, Sadie, if someone wants to get connected to you, learn how to work with you, or even just be a part of your corner of the internet where you talk about all of these things, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at sadie.schweers. I am on TikTok, and our website is seasonswealthfp.com.
Beautiful. All right. Until next time. Thank you so much, Sadie.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. I'm so glad we got to connect. Thank you to your audience, and just everyone have a beautiful day.
Have I told you today how much I appreciate you? I'd like to imagine this was a meaningful backyard patio kind of chat between friends sipping LaCroix at sunset. If you enjoyed today's show, please take a screenshot to share or forward this episode to a friend. You can also find me at Emily Rushell over on social to continue the conversation. It's truly a joy to hear what tidbits and takeaways made an impact on your day. As always, all links and resources mentioned in today's episode can be found in the show notes listed below or over at emilyrushell.com. Special thanks to my podcast manager, Jill Carr, for the time and love she puts into producing Gathering Growth for this community. What a blessing it is to be on this personal growth journey together. Forever grateful for you.